the zoo, I was working in the creative labs inside of Google, and before Google, I was creative in advertising agencies. So I hope that this is giving you a kind of good sense of how we should approach branding, maybe, because I see that a lot of the times we spend so much time discussing formats before discussing what exactly and why we should be doing what we're doing. So that's how basically I structured this presentation. I wanted it to be not a sequence of cases, like this is a case, this is a case, and this is a nice case. And I mean, we all have, you know, Ken's websites and at critic.com and all these sources of good cases. I wanted to give you a sense of how, at least, I think that we should approach this question. So the first, I think, important definition is for us to decide, like, what is branding? You know, we hear a lot of this inside Google, and especially if you guys have clients, when you're talking to clients who are used to TV, and they're going to say, like, oh, this ad has great branding, or we need more branding in this TVC. And usually what they mean is they need more brand presence, which is not necessarily the best thing in most cases. They're talking about, you know, color codes, slogan, product on screen and stuff, which is not necessarily what people care the most. You know, people, in order to make an impact, we need to talk about emotions. And I stole a definition from the Google's brand curriculum. If you want to do this curriculum, I really suggest you do it. It's not a very short one, but it's a training provided by Google on branding. And their definition, to me, it's pretty perfect, I would say. And the definitions, they say like that. They say that a brand lives only in the mind. A brand is what people think and feel about what a company, product, or service does. And here I think that why I think this is perfect is because usually people get lost in thinking about formats, products, brand, time on screen, when what people actually care is that when they look at a bottle of Evian versus a glass of water, they think that Evian's better. It might not be, but they think that it's better because in their heads, Evian means pure quality from the Alps of France, and this is what we're trying to talk about. And the same, you know, look at Apple. You know, Apple is made in China just like any other phone, but it feels like it's a better product because it's made in, you know, by Apple. And we have a great way. I mean, we are working in a company that is happily providing probably the best, most efficient targeted media formats and technologies to affect the think and feel. And this is what advertising does, and this is what we all have a chance to do every day. And this is what we're talking about. Branding is affecting the think and feel about a company, a product, or a service that comes to Google. And just to define again, like advertising, I took this from the dictionary. And it says that advertising is the activity of producing advertisements for commercial or advertisements, if someone is in the UK, advertisements for commercial products. And then I look at, okay, so what is an advertisement? And it says that advertisement is a notice or announcement in a public medium promoting a company, product, or service. And if we put it all together, this should be more than enough for us to do our job, right? So advertising would be the activity of producing a notice or announcement in a public medium, promoting a company, product, or service. And this, in my opinion, is what maybe 99% of brands do on TV. You know, you watch a commercial and it says like, oh, this butter is amazing. This washing powder washes even cleaner than the next powder. So I decided to do an exercise that I usually do when I'm talking about this theme in universities and with students. And I show them, for example, this ad. This is, of course, not the original one, but it says the Porsche 911 is a great car. You should buy one. I think everyone looks at this ad and thinks that this is a crappy ad or doesn't feel anything about it, right? You wouldn't buy an ad, a Porsche 911 because people told you so, or because someone told you that it's a great car, unless it's someone you trust and you have the money. But this, if you look at the definition of advertising, it is a notice or announcement in a public medium about a product or service, so it should be enough, right? And this is the original one. Honestly now, did you spend your youth dreaming about someday owning a Nissan or a Mitsubishi? So this ad is basically telling you the same thing, that this is a great car that you should own, that you should desire, but it's doing it in a way that makes you think and feel differently about Porsche. You're not thinking like, oh, okay, it's a great car, it's a shit. No, it's like, yeah, that is true. It's talking about my own aspirations. I've never wanted to achieve things in life to get something shitty. I wanted to get the cool stuff. So it's basically saying the same thing, but it's affecting this think and feel about a brand. And just one more example. This is a famous campaign from The Economist. I always read The Economist, CEO, age 27. Again, it is fun, but because it's so in-your-face fake, and it's talking about success and not about what you expect or not expect to be. And this is the original one. I never read The Economist, management trainee, aged 42. So the second, they're both saying the same thing, but the second one, which is the original that won many awards, it's fun. It makes you smile. It doesn't make you think like, come on, I'm not going to be a CEO at 23 if I read The Economist. But if you don't read, you could be a trainee at 42, and you don't want to be one. So it's basically saying, with The Economist, you get the information you need to go up in life, just as the first one, but it's really affecting the way you think and feel about the brand. So in my opinion, I think advertising, if we're talking about doing it in the right way, we need to add a small sentence to the definition. Instead of promoting a company, service, or product, it needs to be a notice or an announcement that changes the perception of a company, product, and service, or service. So in that sense, brand, if it equals advertising, I would say that good branding equals good advertising. So when we're doing stuff, we shouldn't, do it for the sake of technology, or for the sake of the format, or for the sake of making money. If we're really into helping a client that comes to us, or sell a product, or change the perception of a service, we're talking about good branding, and we're talking about good advertising. So we should think about changing the perception. And how do we define what good branding is? And it's pretty simple. This is a section of, it could be one slide. I made it in 3 so I could talk a little more. This is a phrase from Bill Bernbach, and this is the father of modern creativity or modern advertising. He created all the famous Volkswagen campaigns, mobile campaigns back in the 70s. And he said, dullness won't sell your product, but neither will irrelevant brilliance. And this again is, sometimes we see a lot of agencies, I would say mostly in award shows, but doing brilliant stuff to win awards, but that don't affect anything, the think and feel about a brand. So you will see like a world's first that no one knows or understands, or the most incredible, creative campaign that has nothing to do with the brand philosophy or mission. So again, I think consumers, they're pretty good at scanning bullshit. Unless you really talk to their souls, your product won't sell. Of course, if you say my product's great, buy it, they won't buy it as well. So it's striking a balance, but focusing on the user. And Google, when I joined Google in the Creative Lab, I'm a copywriter by formation. I was given this thing called Writing at Google. I don't know if you all have this document. I can share it later. But the number one thing that starts the first chapter is focus on the user and everything else will follow. So I'm just going to read this, even though you can read as well. It's like you've heard this before, but it's worth repeating. We're at our best when we're about the users and not ourselves. Think about what you're writing from their perspectives, not Google's. If you've ever been stuck listening to someone who thinks they're more important than you, you already know the agony we're trying to avoid. Respect the user's time, respect their intelligence. And I think, again, this is where most marketers or brands fail in the advertising, is that they're usually talking about themselves and not talking about the user or about how this is going to affect their lives. So again, if we're talking about the think and feel, it's the think and feel of the user. It doesn't really matter that your product is better if people think you're an asshole or if they're not listening. So you should talk to them from their point of view. A great case in my opinion, recently is Dove. For the past, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, they've been speaking about real beauty. They're not talking about our products make ordinary women look great. They're saying you're more beautiful than you think, and being the way you are is fine. And this is what our brand stands for. They're very rarely saying our product make you 20% younger. We have a line for all kinds of skin. They're trying to make you think of a brand that respects you, that is not thinking about the top models or the most incredible women in the world to try and convince you to buy, otherwise you're not going to be as beautiful. They're saying it's fine the way you are, and I think that's why the brand resonates so well with many consumers and has, I would say, generated the legacy of advertising. Always started like a girl. Venus from Gillette started don't be if, be a and. So there's a lot of, I think, good things coming from this conversation, and also that because of digital, those conversations gain some sort of volume and size super fast. And that's why I think if we all do it right, thinking about the user, then everything's going to be great. And there is one rule: even if you're thinking about the user, and if you're doing everything the right way, do not ask for more than one new behavior at a time. This I don't know if you all know Tim Ferriss. He wrote the 4-Hour Body, the 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Chef, and this is one of the principles that he says that why most people fail at everything is because when you're starting stuff, usually the instructions are, this is super simple. If you want to lose weight, change your diet, join a gym, change your friends, it's like change your surroundings. It's just too much to ask. So whatever you want to be successful at, it's just maximum one new behavior that you must ask from people. So again, even if you're respecting the user, if you're thinking about what is important for them and trying to change his perception of a brand, and then you say, all you have to do is download the app, connect your phone to the website, operate this, and then download and send your photos, and it's just too much, So whenever we're surprised about low engagement levels of any campaign, it's just because we're usually asking too much. If you want them to watch a video, watch a video. If you want them to connect the device, connect the device, but don't say like, watch the video, connect the device, download the app. It's just too much. So again, keep the user in head, but also remember that if you ask for more than one thing because they're doing something else, it will fail. Okay, so how does this apply to mobile? And I think these are just some good principles to have in mind in general, but when it comes to mobile, it's even more important, is to respect the user's context. So it's not about just thinking about the user, because we're all users, and that's quite easy, to keep in mind. Is like, would a person like me or like someone like my mom understand this message, like this message? That's the first part. But then there's the user's context, which in mobile, it's exaggerated to another level. And this is the user's context on the left. So people have very little time. They're sometimes limited by data plans, by the region they live. So they're usually suffering from a kind of slow connection, which also could be faults of the device that is slow. But the experience is slow, and we all know the expectations that those people have. People do tend to have a short attention span on mobile because they are doing something else. They have a million things to see and do, so they're receiving links from friends, messages on instant messages, emails, checking Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So there's a million things to see and do, plus your message. Those guys share everything. They like or they hate. When they're neutral, they don't. So again, if you're doing bad advertising that people don't get passionate or hate it, there's nothing that you're going to get from those people. And they do reward effort. For brands that listen and show that they're listening or answering or being relevant, people do reward it with loyalty or with sharing or putting a good word for it. So if we're thinking about like how to tackle those problems, the first one, of course, is to be concise. So is do not try to take a lot of the time from these people because they don't have a lot of time. Sometimes you're checking your message while you're on the bus. The minute you walk out of the bus, you're going to stop doing whatever you're doing. So if you're trying to get them to interact with your brand or watch a video that's like 15 minutes long and the bus ride is 7, you're going to watch 7 minutes. So try to be as concise as possible. Deliver your message on the shortest amount of time. Don't try to get people to engage with your brand just for the sake of engaging. Or if you're talking to an agency that's doing video and they have a kind of TV background or cinema background, they will try to tell you that storytelling takes time. It might, but not necessarily. So we've seen very nice short stories being told in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's a lot of time, especially in today's culture. It's almost too much to ask. And just a small asterisk, I was reading a very nice article about billion-dollar business, and usually those take less than a minute per day of the users. So it's quite astonishing the amount of how much value there is in 1 minute of the user's time. So try to use as little as you can. I put a small bracket there, or offer a big reward, because in some cases when people have the time, or if you really strike a nice conversation, or make a platform that is interesting for like gaming. We know how much time people spend with gaming, just sometimes watching gaming on YouTube. So yeah, they do have time when they have time to offer. But usually there is if you're coming from a brand side, there needs to be a reward at the end. People won't interact with you or talk to you just for the sake of talking. So there needs to be a clear reward at the end for those people. In terms of connection, again, be light. So some of you have seen L'Oreal's Makeup Genius, which I think is a fantastic app. I've downloaded and used it myself and shared myself with makeup in my face. However, it's a 1.2 gigabyte app. So I mean, just to download, if you have a 2 gigabyte plan for your month and you want to download it over, cellular data, you might end someone's data plan for the month. So again, need to be respectful that it's about the time it's going to take and also how much it's going to consume from people. Short attention span, of course, be interesting. This is unnecessary to say. When people have a lot to do, just try to be relevant. Just don't try to deliver a message for the sake of delivering. Remember that people are giving cues about their interests, the place they're located, whatever they're doing. They're hashtagging their intentions. So try to use those to deliver a relevant message. If I'm fishing, don't try to sell snowboards. Try to be relevant to the cues that the user is giving you. In terms of sharing everything, very few brands actually listen. So again, people are giving all these cues for free. They're checking in at the places they are. They're hashtagging. They're tagging friends. They're telling who they're with, what they're doing, where they're doing, when they're doing. It's like almost too easy, and it doesn't cost anything to listen. But most brands don't. They just go with the message they have and just try to hammer it down people's head. And when you prove that you listen, again, it might be something as simple as answering questions or answering comments on YouTube or sending a relevant link, or even creating help content on YouTube when people ask a question like how to hammer a nail into a wall without breaking the paint, and you had a video from Lowe or from Obi or from whoever that can provide you this conversation. You prove that you care about what people care, and they will watch and they will be glad. Some of the cases that I've put into the presentation that I want to share, I try to cover all grounds, at least in different ways, to try and explain to you what, in my case, is great branding on mobile. It's not just great technology. It's not just great uses of formats. It's not just great ideas. I think that the cases that I selected are a combination of those principles, plus I think they all put user first. They're a brand message, but they're coming from the user's perspective. And why? Because there's no such thing as online, offline, mobile, desktop. It's just how people live. If you ask someone, I can ask my wife, for example, how much time do you spend online? She's gonna say, what do you mean? For her, WhatsApp, Instagram, it's not online. It's how she's talking to her friends. Because not everyone is in the room with her all the time. So when you tell people like, oh, did you see that experience? Like, what experience? Like, people don't see the difference. There is no boundaries for them. So it's really important, again, to think that even if you're thinking an idea for mobile, that idea doesn't have to be inside the screen of a smartphone at first. And that's how I'm going to actually start two cases that I think they were just so successful, and also, again, business-wise, so successful, not just for awards. Those guys, of course, they won Golden Can, they won everything, but they were so important for the brands that they were done that they actually became either global cases or, again, a point of reference for the whole market. First case, Coke Zero in Brazil. So I think this case is now so famous around the world. It's called Share a Coke around the world, but in Brazil it was called the more the better, because the flavor was like the more flavor the better, because it didn't have sugar. So it was the less calories the better, the more flavor the better. And they decided to replace the more flavor with names. And I think you all know what happened after this. But what I find amazing is that if you think about this, this is not, from a traditional perspective, this is not a digital idea, right? You would think, they put the names, people are going to buy it. No, the magic of this idea, it happens when you go to Instagram, when you go to Facebook, when you go to Pinterest, when you go to Twitter. People were hunting cans, not for the sake of cans, but to post a picture with the cans, like Coke made a can for myself. And of course, each Mariana, each Rick had 1 million free posts on mobile that would have cost them maybe more than making the can with the name Rick. But more than that, the conversations around this was like, I found my can, you don't have a can, Coke will never make a can with your name. There were jokes. It basically changed popular culture. One of Brazil's most famous YouTube creators, called Porta dos Fundos, one of their most famous videos is Name in the Can. And because in Brazil we have very funny names, usually it's a combination of like half the father name, half the mom's name. So we have too many names, to be honest. And it was a guy searching for his name. He's like, what's your name? He's like, Ricky Wellington. And the guy is like, Ricky Wellington, you never find. Coke will never make a can with your brand. So it became photo content, it became video content, and Coke did nothing. But they were owning this conversation. So, and it was so, again, in terms of sales, it was bigger than Christmas. When I was talking to Coke at the time, I was working with them in another project. They said it's the only thing that was bigger than Christmas for Coke. So it became from a local campaign for Coke Zero in Brazil, it became a global case for the mainstream Coca-Cola.
And as far as you know, that they were the one invented it, or they copied? Because
they invented. That's what I'm saying. Like this, okay. To me, a little bit like Dove sketches. Dove Real Beauty started a movement around people's behavior or emotions. This is like they basically understood that people are super self-centered, especially in mobile and digital. There are like selfies, like probably the #1 hashtag in the world. Have selfie sticks, selfie cameras, HD cameras. So everything's around you taking pictures of yourself. But it's not just the face, it's usually where you are, with whom you are, and stuff that makes the content a little less self-centered and more like, oh, look how cool the brand did this, but I'm talking about myself, So to me, again, they put the user first, like, what would people do with a can? Like, if it's an ordinary can, no one's going to share it. And even if, we ask a campaign for engagement, like share a Coke and you win, maybe you win a trip to Hawaii, they would get maybe half the stuff, and people who see it, it was like, I hate Coke, they're doing this, whereas if it's about the user, people share it, they look for it because they also want to be part of this movement. But even though they were the first with names, and we've seen this now that it's on Kit Kat packaging, Snickers packages, everyone is now playing with the package to kind of create some kind of either relevant connection or be shared on social medias and stuff. There was a case which happened, I think 1 year before this, started in Brazil. And again, I really hope that the cases will play well via VC. We all know that they don't. So I'm just going to explain it a little before. These were McDonald's billboards in Piccadilly Circus. It was done, I think, in 2010 or 11. I don't remember well. But basically, instead of doing billboards that said, our cheeseburgers are great, or now for 99 pennies or whatever, they made billboards that people would take photos and share. So hopefully this is going to play well. So I think this idea was a little bit ahead of its time, because at the time there wasn't a lot of smartphones around. As you've seen, there was a lot of still digital cameras, but the principle is pretty much the same as you see on Coke. Is like they knew that people were gonna take pictures of these ads and share. So people were doing this favor to McDonald's, and at the same time the whole "I'm loving it" campaign that was just starting was being actually brought to life, because people were loving this. And sharing all this content, and sometimes because people were so open to this, every 3 or 4 images they would pop. I'm thinking of a cheeseburger, I'm thinking of fries, and people would still share this because they could do a face of I'm thinking, and so super based on user. Downloads time 0, app needed 0, connection need 0. So it's all about this user's context. The next case, yes. This is again, I think, a great case of just leveraging the fact that everyone has a phone in their hands, including the employees in your company. And it was the first big case. It was done in 2010. It's called the 12 Force. I'm going to play the case, but the reason I like this is because they were basically showing people that 1, we listen to your questions. 2, we provide great advice. 3, we have the products for you. And hopefully, if it doesn't play well, I'm explaining anyway.
Best Buy has always been the undisputed tech expert, but their key asset, the knowledge of the Blue Shirts and Geek Squad agents, was confined to their stores. So if people never came in, how would they ever know what they were missing? So Best Buy decided to launch a tool that could extend the knowledge of their geeks and Blue Shirts beyond their walls and out into the digital space. Meet the 12th Force, a modern, digitized volunteer army of Best Buy employees available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on Twitter. And not to push products or increase sales, but to provide 12, a fancy new term for expert technical help in tweet form. If you have a question, simply tweet at 12Force and get an answer fast. In fact, for every question tweeted, over 2,000 blue shirts are racing to give the fastest and bestest answer. And you got answers from real Best Buy employees, not from some call center an ocean away. And no questions are out of bounds. No questions are too ridiculous. No questions are ignored. Plus, the collective power of 12Force is always watching for tech issue tweets and can quickly lend a hand, even without anyone asking. Since the launch, 12Force has answered thousands and thousands of tweets and is building momentum for Best Buy as a brand that not only knows tech, but lives it as well.
Yeah, I checked 12th Force today. There were around 65,000 tweets on this account, which is an insane number. But if you think about the time it should take for a guy that is an expert to answer a question like what kind of batteries do I need for this product, it's 0. But for the person to receive an answer in 2 minutes from a brand, it's incredible. And by the way, I have a question. Is the audio playing from the mic and the videos, or the YouTube plays normally?
It's not from the microphone.
Is it decent or shit?
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this next one, I present to you with a lot of pain in my heart because I was working for a sneaker in Russia when they were launching the "It's not you, you're not you when you're hungry" campaign, and I had the idea to do this idea with YouTube bloggers, where you would see like the fit guys as old man starting the video saying he doesn't want to work out and blah blah blah, and people were like, "What's going on with you? Maybe you're hungry." Has a Snickers. The video goes on. Makeup. They was like, it's too much trouble doing this makeup. I hate this stuff. So it was basically bringing the TVC to life for a cost. At the time, the YouTube creators weren't charging anything. So I'm really sad they didn't do it. They said that I don't want to work with guys who are not famous, because at the time they were not so famous. And then AMB Vickers BBDO in London did the same, but with Twitter, and won all the awards in the world. So I'm really sad they didn't do this. But again, I think that the nice thing about this is like when you have a nice story, and this is something that we at the zoo always try to work with agencies, because if you don't have a nice overarching story or what you're trying to reflect on mobile or in digital, again, you're always going to fall back on the tech, which is not the right way to approach. So it's like, how would you tell this story on this platform? And then you try to find the interpretation that's correct for this one. And in this case, for the price of like 5 tweets per celebrity, I think they gathered much more impact than with one single TPC.
Quiet Sunday afternoon, we asked a celebrity to send 5 short tweets.
That's just our internet.
3 days later, they were mentioned in Parliament.
It's come to something when Katie Price's tweets make more sense on the economy than the Labour front bench.
We'd been asked to launch Snickers' global campaign, "You're not you when you're hungry," in the UK. Instead of TV, we decided to use Twitter. We asked 5 celebrities to tweet out of character. Katie Price, famous for her modelling, tweeted about macroeconomics.
Small struggle here with the internet, guys.
People were surprised and responded immediately. One tweet was retweeted 1,400 times.
Try again. See if it goes a little smoother. Yeah, that's why we use Keynote at the Zoo. I'll jump to the next one and maybe we come back to this one. Maybe it's not going to work as well.
The connection.
Maybe if you show them from YouTube page and not within the Presso.
Let's try that.
Quiet Sunday up.
Oops, the fallbacks. So,
Quiet Sunday.
okay.
Quiet Sunday afternoon. We asked a celebrity to send 5 short tweets. 3 days later, they were mentioned in Parliament.
It's come to something when Katie Price's tweets make more sense on the economy than the Labour front bench.
We've been asked to launch Snickers' global campaign, You're Not You When You're Hungry, in the UK. Instead of TV, we decided to use Twitter. We asked 5 celebrities to tweet out of character. Katie Price, famous for her modelling, tweeted about macroeconomics.
I think we're gonna have to share this later, no? I don't know.
People were surprised and responded immediately. One tweet was retweeted 1,400 times. Even the BBC's economics correspondent joined in. Then the final tweet revealed the campaign endline. National newspapers reported the story. Then England footballer Rio Ferdinand tweeted about his new hobby, knitting. Once again, these out-of-character tweets provoked a huge response. Twitter had never been used like this. There were complaints, but in a landmark ruling, the Advertising Standards Authority cleared Snickers. And a campaign of just 25 tweets ended up reaching 26 million people. Online, in newspapers, on TV, on radio, and in Parliament.
Yeah, I'm sorry that this 1 minute case lasted 3 minutes. But again, I think one important thing about this this case, which also is reflected on the next case, is like basically, and this is good for us as well. This is something I usually talk to our guys inside the zoo. Is like our technology is already so good that sometimes you don't need to innovate on the technology itself, but to find a way to use our technology that no one maybe has even thought about it. So this next case is a great case. It was done on Instagram, but I think, again, there is no new technology, but it's a great way to use what people are, all this information that people are giving away for free to deliver your message. Maybe this one's going to play. 1 second, I think it might play. Faith. There are only two more cases, so bear with me. The next one, I've spoken about, being concise and being brief on your message. This was a, I think, 2-week long game, but again, it was super successful because it struck a chord and there was a big reward. So this has a lot of Google tools, Google Maps, API and stuff embedded. And it was done again in 2010 when not everyone had a smartphone, but just like the BMW films, people were downloading all these 500 megabytes films overnight just to watch the next day because they were so cool. This, I think, was maybe the first game that took advantage of the smartphone as a positioning device, as your gaming console, and as your social platform. And that's why the Mini Getaway, I think, was one of the maybe still one of the biggest cases that the brand had, not just in Stockholm, but around the world.
It's the first Mini which has 4 doors, 4-wheel drive, 4 individual seats, and measures over 4 meters long.
For 7 days, we invited everyone with an iPhone to hunt and catch a virtual Mini in Stockholm City and win a real Mini Countryman. You used an app where you could see the location of the virtual Mini, all other players, and yourself. All locations were updated in real time so you could follow how everyone moved. If you got closer than 50 meters of the Mini, you could take it with your iPhone. Then you had to get away, because anyone within 50 meters could take the Mini from you. The person with a virtual Mini in their iPhone when the game finished won a real Mini Countryman. On October 31st, we released the virtual Mini in the center of Stockholm, which kicked off an intense 24/7 hunt all over the city and a variety of tactics.
Minst 2 timmar per dag. Jag tog ut simkortet allting och så åkte jag dit, jag såg positionen och så satte jag i allting och så tog jag den.
Appen tar ju inte höjdskillnad så att försvann lite där med helikoptern.
Vi hade den några sekunder inne på kontoret. Då blev det fullt med folk här utanför.
During the game week, more than 11,000 people participated. The virtual car was transported almost 1,500 physical kilometers, and the average gaming time was 5 hours and 6 minutes per person. On the final day, parts of Stockholm were totally jammed with players.
Det står bilar hela vägen.
Ja, det är det.
De är inline som mopeder.
A 22-year-old won the Mini of his dreams.
Jag ringer dig sen när jag klarar allt här. Men jag vann bilen.
People from everywhere followed the game on our website. The campaign was all over the internet, and hundreds of thousands discussed it in social media. What began as a launch of a new car model ended up starting a movement.
Alltså jag tycker att det här är GTA på riktigt liksom. Det här är framtiden. Men det kommer inte funka utan det. Stockholm kommer bli en helt ny stad. Vadå, vi blir förenade genom det här spelet. Det är så jävla
socialt. Skulle vi få tag i den så skulle motspelarna inte kunna ta bilen ifrån oss när vi väl har fått upp fart.
Yeah, so what I think again about this, if we think about the previous as well, is first of all, there was a creative story about getting away. But this game is not just a fun game. I mean, if you think about any brand could do it, if you do it for, I don't know, Kit Kat, and at the end you win a huge box of chocolate, it might have worked. It might, but again, Mini is about fun and speed. And this game is basically the reflection of those brand values. So if you take part in this game, you're sure that Mini is not a luxury, inaccessible, serious brand. And if you're trying to get an audience to think that this is the brand for you, this mobile gaming brought this to life, and it made people think that, okay, Mini is a brand that's fun, it's fast, and it's for me. Especially with the new car, there was this kind of getaway car because it's not just for the city. And the last case, maybe all of you have seen because it's a Google Zoo case. But the reason I want to show this is because, again, this technology has been around for so long, And it's funny that only in 2015 we're winning awards, with geo-targeted banners. I think this is not as much as a word of warning to you as it would be for LCS, but I usually tell them LCS, like when they're selling a format to the client, I say like a client cannot foresee the potential of a format unless you put it in context. So if you want to explain to him, that he can target ads, per location, at least try to come up with an example that shows why he should do so, or why it would be more effective to target a certain audience or a certain event. Use the media not just as a format per se, or just not as a cold targeting tool. For example, like if you have a bad ad for butter, but you target it to housewives, it's not making it any better, more emotional. It's not changing the way a housewife thinks and feels about this. But if you create a story about something when she's cooking and then that message is delivered, then it really changes the conversation. So it's not just about who and when you target those people, is a chance for you to appear and tell a relevant story at the right time. So if you haven't seen this, I hope you enjoyed this case.
Losing your dog is a heartbreaking ordeal, which is why we created the Pedigree Found mobile app. The lost dog alert that moves faster than your dog, without the cost or complexity of a GPS tag. You just register your dog with Found, a free end-to-end mobile solution. And then, if they ever go missing, you simply push one button. Within seconds, thousands of lost dog alerts are posted across mobile ads in a 2.5-kilometer radius, activating an army of scouts that will get your dog home safely and quickly.
Missing dogs posters and neighborhood flyers have long been a way to let locals know you've lost your pooch. Now a new smartphone app aims to do the same thing.
This technology is really world first in terms of utilizing our Google Display Network as well as dynamic creative to deliver a real-time message in a very finite location using geolocation targeting. It's the first of its kind globally, and we're hoping it's just the start of many more to come.
This goes way beyond just creating an app. Working with Google, we'll develop a new way to use display advertising that can combine the buying power of Mars with real-time geo-targeted communications to help solve deeply personal, localized problems.
So thanks to Pedigree Found, your dog won't stay lost for long. Pedigree Found, the lost dog alert that moves faster than your dog.
And two more things, I think, again, which make this really good branding in terms of the users. First of all, it thinks about the context of the user who's creating the ad, where it's like, I don't want my dog to get lost. But it's thinking about the context of the person who's going to help. So it's not asking everyone to download the app, everyone to join the movement, everyone's like, basically it said, everyone else is doing something else on a mobile device. So why don't we push this one lost poster to all these mobile apps through the GDN network? Because most of the sites people are looking have Google Ads technology. So it's thinking both about the person who lost the dog and the person who's maybe helping them found, because you have this, thousands of people around you who are looking at their phone, and if they see a lost dog, they will look at maybe they found your dog and they help you find it. And the second thing is like this idea is able to achieve something that is even, I think, beyond normal advertising. It's like if you really found your dog because of Pedigree, you're very unlikely to change brands for the rest of your life. Having a consumer or people, as we should always say, in debt or like owing something to your brand, I mean, that's a level of loyalty that it's unlikely to change, and people really become advocates. It's not just the usual way we say like, oh, let's create brand advocates by doing great communication. No, it's like if you found something that's really meaningful for you, you would probably be always in favor of this brand. So this summarizes, and I think whatever you do, just try to keep one thing in mind. Let me just click it correct. And this is like the pillar of everything you've seen on all those cases. It's provide information, entertainment, or utility. If you can combine more than one, great. Usually it's really hard because the clients that we have and the brand managers that we usually deal with will want you to talk about the client and not give information that's relevant for the user or entertain the user or give utility to the user. They're going to try to give information about the product, show how the product is fun or how the product is useful, which is not always the case. So keeping the user in mind when you're thinking about an idea that the product fits, then you're going to hit a home run. And if you think about this structure for YouTube, when you're talking about help, hub, and hygiene, it's basically this. Entertainment is your hero content, information is your help content, or being useful depending on how you want it, and the passion, where people are looking for something that they like or how to do stuff. So this, I think, is a great checklist for you to look at an idea afterwards or an execution and say, okay, it is good branding, either on mobile or just in other formats. So if you guys have questions, I think we have like 5 minutes.
Any questions for Andreas?
I have a quick question. Like often when client came to us, they don't have ideas and they just want some vague things, technical things. You said that keep it simple. I perfectly agree with what you said. It makes sense. So what would you suggest? If it happened to you as well, maybe with you it's different because you can create the idea as well. For us, it's more.
Yeah, I think I have done what I shouldn't have done many times in terms of, for example, when I was working for marketing in Russia, and I had LCS ask me questions about what could I do for this client. I was doing what I wasn't supposed to do, which was creating ideas or trying to, like you said, do something that is not in my job description. So I would say if you have a great idea, share it. I don't think anyone has been said to be given a great idea. And you also have, of course, I mean, at Google, there's always a big balance between like selling more or meeting your quota versus doing exactly what should be done or doing the right thing. And I think this is something that the zoo has a bit more freedom, which is good for us. But at the same time, I think other departments should have a little more freedom as well, to not just try to fit either a bad idea into a better format or to fit a bad idea into a format that it shouldn't be fit, because we've all seen that sometimes you're given a print to transform into a banner, or you're given a TVC to transform into a masthead, or it's not always about finding the right answer to a brief. It's always trying to kind of squeeze stuff in, or like I said, use our tools as a laser sharp targeting, but not to deliver something great, not a great experience, not a great message, and we've seen cases that sometimes we are trying to do something good by either adding some kind of utility or some kind of personal touch to an experience, but because the client's not ready to give up on his own, let's say, sales, marketing, KPIs or whatever, you end up with a kind of Frankenstein, or where you have like a nice maps experience showing you how this car drives from this point to this point, but then he asks you to download the app and connect this and have a dual video experience that over your data plan won't work and stuff. So my personal, this is not on record, suggestion is sometimes push back, say like, I don't think that this is the best way to do this, or come up with a solution that you would suggest. If you need to check with your manager or whoever needs to be checked, see if you can take, like, say, okay, this is what they asked, but I think, you know, the best way, or we need to make this or that changes to deliver something better. I don't think everyone has ever complained about being suggestive, proactive ideas for free. So it is a tough call, and especially at Google, I know, and especially for, I don't know if you have sales team in the call, but especially when you have quotas to meet, it's very hard, you know, to not take advantage of a situation where a client's willing to, you know, spend money regardless of what is being done. So it's a tough call.
Good point.
Okay, so we run out of time. Thank you very much, Andreas. It was very useful and very interesting examples. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm sharing the presentation with you guys, so you can watch the cases maybe without lag. And I'm also sharing a video that I sent to Paulo, who's not here, or maybe he's somewhere in the VC, about idea versus tech, which is just a fun video to watch, but it's it's a very good point to reflect upon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.